welcome back to Planet Doug. I filmed an introduction to this video using my new Insta360 One X2 camera, but this is what I ended up with. I don't know how I did it. I'm still getting used to the touchscreen controls and the menu settings on this camera. It's a little bit counterintuitive at times and hard to figure out. So for the entire morning, I was filming sort of vlog segments using this camera, but it turns out I shot all of it in time lapse instead of regular video mode, and I had no idea I had the camera set to time lapse. Anyway, I didn't say anything that exciting in the introduction. Basically, I was saying that I had a visitor here in Mae Sot for a few days, and throughout the video I call him the mystery visitor. So I had arranged that day to meet my mystery visitor at Lucky Tea Garden for breakfast, and then we were going to head out on my scooter, do a bit of cafe hopping, and then later on I talked him into visiting a couple of temples that I know about that were sort of located out near the last cafe that we went to. And I had a bit of time in the morning before I was scheduled to meet up with my mystery visitor. So I hung out here at Panu House and I did some testing of my Insta360 One X2 camera. I was just playing around with it here and I talked about some of the features of it and I talked about mounting it on the scooter and things like that. And then throughout the day, as I was hanging out with my mystery visitor, I was just experimenting with the One X2 camera. Using it inside the Lucky Tea Garden. I mounted it on the scooter. I shot some video at the Picture Book guest house where my mystery visitor was staying, and I did tons of stuff like that. And the whole philosophy behind the testing, I thought of it as just throwing clay against the wall and seeing what sticks. Because shooting in 360 is such a new experience for me. I'm having trouble, wrapping my head around the theory and the practice of doing it. So I decided that the only way to really learn was to just go out and start filming some stuff, just doing random things, put the camera here, put it there, and shoot something. And then in editing later on, I can see what the video looks like, and using the special techniques of editing 360 video, I can see what I can do with that kind of video, and I can kind of, like I said, just toss clay at the wall, see what sticks, see what works, see what doesn't. So that's the setup for today, and I hope you enjoy the video. So there is the One X2 360 camera, and I have it mounted quite high off the ground in an interesting development, because what I realized is I can daisy chain selfie sticks. So this top portion that you see there, that is the Insta360 selfie stick itself, which is about 4 feet long, but in order to mount it up off the ground now, I've screwed it into the base of another tripod. This is the GoPro tripod. Oh, I hear some dogs barking. So we're gonna have some visitors in a minute. Maybe I'll switch over to the 360 camera, maybe get some video of the dogs running around. One thing I was curious about is if I mount the Insta360 selfie stick onto this GoPro tripod base, I was wondering whether it would still be invisible, because down here at the bottom it's quite a bit thicker than the Insta360 stick itself. So yeah, I'm just going to walk up and down here a little bit, and I'm curious whether the bottom tripod will be visible or not. Well, that was certainly an interesting experience. It shows in a way the utility of this method of just throwing clay at the wall and seeing what sticks, because even as the dogs came running out, and I knew I wanted to film the dogs, but with no experience with this camera, I had no idea where to hold it. So I really had no idea what to do, and I just put the camera low to the ground right in front of the dogs. And it's so hard to break the habit of thinking like you're using a regular camera and aiming it at the dogs and following them around. But you don't use a 360 camera that way. But at this point, to be honest, I don't know how you use it. But here I have it back on the tripod, mounted on the ground. And just as a quick demonstration, you can see right now I have the camera, it's just pointed this way, and you can see the scooter in front of me. And because this is a 360 camera, I can spin it all the way around. And now you can see me standing here. And then now I can spin it up to look at the sky. And I can spin it all the way down, to look at the ground, to look at my feet. And I guess you can just barely, you can make out the tripod legs at the bottom, because they are outside of the stitch line. So the tripod legs aren't invisible, but the whole selfie stick holding up the camera is invisible. Yeah, that is quite interesting. Something else that I'd learned about the One X2, which is turning out to be incredibly valuable, it almost transforms it completely into a different camera for me, is that it has a built-in tracking feature. And this is interesting because other cameras that I've used that have a tracking feature, they physically track. Like the DJI One X2, the lens physically turns around on a gimbal as the camera itself tries to track you. And that is very, very difficult to do, and it doesn't work that well, to be honest. But this One X2 tracks you afterwards. It tracks you in the editing software. So what I'm going to do right now is just walk around the camera, and the camera is going to look to you like it is turning and following me everywhere. But it's not. It's really just sitting right here in this position where you can see it right there. It's on the tripod right beside my scooter. So there's the camera ahead of me. And I'm recording on the GoPro's internal microphones as well, by the way. I'm not using the Rode at all. So this is internal audio from the GoPro. And all the audio from the One X2 is also going to be internal from the microphones. But what I'm going to do is just walk around the scooter, and I'm going to track myself in the editing program afterwards. So right now, the camera is tracking me, but it's hard to even realize that it's doing it because it's not moving. But as I'm walking around here, the camera angle should be following me if I've done it right in the editing program. I can walk all the way around it. I can walk towards the camera, pass through here. Hopefully that followed me. Maybe that was tricky. Follow me this direction. Walking towards the door of my room. Sit down on the bench here. Oh, there go the dogs, getting their exercise. I can walk over to this side of the scooter, and I don't have to look at the camera at all. I don't have to make sure it's tracking me, because as I said, all the editing, everything is done in the editing afterwards. It's not done while you're filming. So yeah, here I can sit on the scooter. The camera should still be tracking me. I'm curious, whoa, I didn't know what that was. If it can track me if I'm moving faster. So I'm going to run a little bit. Yeah, curious how well that tracked me. So that is a tracking feature with the One X2, which makes it a very powerful and versatile camera, in my opinion. Hi. Hi. You having a good run? Having fun? There you go. There you go. All right, now let's talk a little bit about mounting the camera on the scooter. And to do that, the motorcycle bundle, the motorcycle mounting bundle from Insta360 comes with this, which consists of two pieces. This is the clamp that you clamp onto your scooter or your motorcycle, and this is where you screw in either just the camera or the selfie stick, or you can screw in the extension arm, anything you want. So you simply unscrew that, you know, as wide as you need. It gets pretty wide. I'm not sure exactly what the maximum width is. I think I've reached it right there. And then all you do is position these jaws over the grip or the bar on your motorcycle and tighten it down. So on this scooter, the obvious spot is to put it right here on the left hand grip. I can't put it on the right side, of course, because this is the throttle, and I need to be able to turn the throttle to control the scooter, but this one has no function. It's just a hand grip. So you tighten that down, get it nice and firm. And something I've realized in general is that scooters aren't very good for mounting anything. They're not designed for that. Like mounting a GoPro is difficult, mounting this camera is difficult. And part of the problem here is that this rubber grip is on this metal grip. And it, in fact, has a little bit of give in it. So no matter how much you tighten this down, you're only tightening it down on the rubber. It's not gripping the metal underneath. And if the rubber of the grip moves, you can see that there's a little, you know, this will also move. It never gets totally solid. And if you have your camera at the end of a 4-foot selfie stick, you know, a 1/4 inch movement down here at the base translates into like, 8 inches of movement way at the top of the selfie stick. So you really want this to be as firm as possible. From this point, the mounting options become interesting because I have this tripod threaded mount on a relatively firm grip, and I can take the camera itself, which has a screw mount in the bottom, and I can screw it directly on to here. So I don't have to use the selfie stick. I don't have to use any kind of extension arm if I don't want to. In this case, of course, it is in this direction being blocked by the mirror, so you probably want it a bit higher than this, but it is something that you can do. Just screw the camera directly onto the mount, and that might be quite useful in other situations because you can mount it on the grip, but I can also mount the camera, for example, down here on the foot peg. So if I have the camera mounted here, it doesn't matter that it's a very short throw. It might even be good. And then this will loosen, of course, and then I can angle the camera forward, backwards, down towards the ground or upright, and pivot it in any direction. And again, that's something else you have to think about, because I talked about in a different video. The camera has an invisible stitch line on the edge, and it's along this orientation, right on the edge, that it combines the video from the two camera lenses, and that can introduce quite a bit of distortion. So in terms of positioning the camera, you don't really want the edge pointing at what might be your main subject. So if I was thinking I'm mainly interested in filming, the rear wheel, and I would not orient the camera like this, because now the stitch line is going right over the rear wheel. So in this case, I would turn it so that it is facing this way, and now the camera lens is facing fully towards the wheel, and the stitch line is going up towards the sky and down towards the ground. So that's something you have to think about, where the stitch line is. If you were filming yourself, for example, like vlogging, you wouldn't aim the stitch line at you, at your face, because it would look very weird. You would turn the camera so that the lens is facing you directly, and then the stitch line goes off to the edges. Something else I read is that I don't know if this is true or not, but you can consider exposure. That if I had the camera in this orientation, one lens pointing entirely up at the sky and one lens down at the ground, you might have exposure problems because the exposure difference between these two lenses is so great, particularly if there's a bright sky up ahead. So if you have your camera out to the side like this, you might want to have it on a 45-degree angle, like that. And then with a 45-degree angle, each lens is aiming at both the sky and the ground. So they are both compensating for the different exposure levels, the bright sky and the dark ground. So the exposure from the two lenses will match. If you happen to have it pointing, straight up and down like this lens might have a different exposure setting from the bottom lens. And I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest, but it makes logical sense. So I think you basically have to think about where the stitch line is aiming and where the exposure is, and maybe put it at a 45-degree angle like that. This mounting option on the back isn't quite as safe and secure as the other options, but it works as well. I've tried out this, like on my scooter, for example. I've got a plastic frame here, and this clamp can go around that frame, and you can tighten that down here. In this case, you have to be a bit more careful because this is a very strong grip, and you could end up breaking, some of this weaker plastic. But that is also a possible, mounting point right there on the back of the scooter. So anywhere where you have an edge or a grip or a rounded surface like the foot pegs, anything like that, you can basically mount this anywhere you want. Something like that. And as I pointed out, if you have it mounted this way with just the camera, you might end up with height problems, because in this case there's interference from the mirror, and of course you can deal with that easily by adding the selfie stick. And this selfie stick breaks down to a pretty small length, so that's the minimum length of this Insta360 selfie stick. Has a tripod base in the bottom, so you just screw that on there, make sure that's nice and snug, and then the 360 camera can screw onto the top. Now that is a very nice height. Look at that. That is amazing. And that is so much more efficient and simpler and easier to work with than all the various systems that I used for the GoPro. And of course, this isn't specific to the camera itself. This is just the mounting technology. A great thing about having this mounting gear is that it also works with the GoPro. So I can unscrew the One X2 and I can screw a GoPro into here as well. So I can mount a GoPro onto this same system. So that's very cool. I love having this setup now. And something else I learned about the One X2, which again is kind of difficult for me to wrap my head around, is that the angle of the camera doesn't matter. I'm so accustomed trying to make cameras level, but with this One X2, for example, you don't have to. So for example, if I wanted to mount a GoPro, but I wanted the GoPro to be directly in front of the scooter, pointing backwards, you have to put in place a very complex series of elbows and joints in order to do that. But with the One X2, it doesn't matter. So if I want this camera positioned more towards the front of the scooter, I can do whatever I want. So I can put it down there And that's absolutely fine. I mean, to the casual eye, it looks like the camera is pointing in that direction, like completely in the wrong direction, and is on this terrible angle. But because it's a 360 camera, it doesn't make any difference at all. It's filming in 360 degrees. So for example, as I said, with a GoPro, if I'm sitting on the scooter right now, like this, and I want the camera directly ahead of me, to get from this point on the grip to here with the GoPro, I mean, I have to go in this direction, then do a right angle turn in this direction, and then somehow have a tripod head, a ball head here pointing upwards, so I can finally position the GoPro at this point. It's very hard to do, and none of those joints work because they're too flexible. But with the 360 camera, you don't have to worry about whether the camera is level or on an angle or anything at all. So basically, I can just loosen this down here and then pull that out. And now that the camera is directly in front of me, I'm done. You can see what a crazy angle the One X2 is on. It looks like it's pointing way off away from me, but that is a perfect position to be aimed, because the camera, because it's 360 and because it has such powerful horizon leveling, is aiming directly back at me, but it is also pointing directly ahead of the scooter. It's pointing directly to the left, to the right, to the ground, to the sky. It is pointing everywhere. So you don't have to worry about what kind of angle the camera is at, which is really very freeing. You know, you can just do anything you want. So, you know, I could mount the camera right there and just go, and I can, you know, keep extending and extending and extending the pole for, you know, as long as it will go, and have it way out in front of the scooter like that. And of course there you get some bounce because the pole is extended so far. But yeah, very, very flexible. Okay, I'm all set to go, and what I'm going to do for this experiment is I have the Insta360 in front of me, almost in a direct line. So if you, right now, looking directly ahead of me on the scooter, you can see that the One X2 is right in front of the scooter, and it's almost exactly at eye level, just as high as my eye line, my line of sight, and I have it extended a fair distance. Let's get off the scooter so you can see what it looks like. So that's how far I have it extended ahead, which is pretty far, but I want to try that out because in editing you can also, of course, change the angle. So afterwards I can change it from ultra wide to linear to narrow. So I have all those different options in post, like in editing, which again is interesting because to do that on a GoPro, you have to choose your field of view before you hit record. You couldn't change it later on. But with a 360 camera, you don't have to choose your field of view in advance. So right now I have set nothing. All I do is hit the record button and I get all of them. So I get ultra wide, wide, narrow, and linear all at once. And then as I edit the video, then I can decide which one I want to use, and I can change it constantly throughout the video clip. And I think the farther away you have it, the better, because you might get a less distorted image. For example, if I have it far ahead of me and then I punch in close with a narrow or linear perspective on me, I still will have a wide field of view, but there will be far less distortion. So I think, you know, farther away the better if you can do it safely. Okay, we're all set to go. I turned off the voice command system, so that doesn't work right now. So I have to reach out, press the button to start recording. I can see the red light, the tally light is flashing, and let's hit the road. And of course I have the GoPro running at the same time, so perhaps I'll be switching back and forth from the perspective from the GoPro to the perspective from the One X2. And of course, the farther away you have the camera mounted from your body or from the scooter, the more careful you have to be that it doesn't point out so far or stick out so far that it hits somebody. I just stopped at a stoplight, so I switched over to the GoPro again, just so I can talk a little bit. But anything you see right now from the Insta360 One X2 is all from this same mounting position. The entire ride to the restaurant, I'm not going to physically move it, so any change you see in the video is coming from changes I make in editing because of the 360.
samples, a couple of minutes, me just playing around with the One X2 camera. No idea what I'm doing, of course. I honestly can't think ahead to the type of shot I want and then think backwards in terms of what to do with the camera. It's such a foreign process to me. So as I said, I'm still going through this, just throwing clay at the wall and seeing what sticks business. And I'm still using internal audio on both this camera and on the GoPro right now. I don't have any kind of a microphone attached, so I'm not sure how the audio is working out. But this is now on the GoPro, of course. I just took the 360 off the tripod mount that I have and put the GoPro there instead. Yeah, it's pretty convenient. My visitor's on his way. He rented a bicycle, or I think the guest house. He's staying at Picture Book, the Picture Book Hotel here in Mae Sot. It's quite a popular place. He had trouble getting a room there actually because it was so full. But he got a room, and I guess they supplied him with a bicycle, so he's riding his bike from Picture Book to here. And when he gets here, we're going to have breakfast. And I guess when he's here, I'll put my cameras away. They have a wide range of dishes available here. The naan bread that they make in the oven out there, very, very popular. They make roti over here at the front kitchen area. And chickpeas, traditional, you know, a lot of traditional Burmese breakfast food, like chickpeas. We got samosas. And I've never ordered their martabak. They have, you know, they have banana roti, and they also have chicken martabak and beef martabak. I had a lot of that when I was in Indonesia. I liked it quite a bit. I might try one of the martabak today just to do something different. The Lucky Tea Garden. Breakfast is done, and I'm here where my visitor, my guest, is staying. This is the Picture Book guest house, and yeah, it's a very popular place with visitors to Mae Sot, with sort of Western visitors in particular. They like the vibe here, sort of a garden setting, and nice rooms. Yeah, it's kind of a cool place. So my mystery visitor and I are going to do a little bit of cafe hopping next. I'm going to get on the scooter and ride out to maybe This Is a Book cafe, and then from there to Give and Take, and then maybe some other cafes, who knows. I'm continuing to learn things as I use this 360 camera as a 360 camera and as kind of a regular vlogging camera, which I'm doing now. For one thing, when I was at the Lucky Tea Garden, I just had the camera running as an experiment, and a couple of times I looked up and the camera had just stopped recording by itself, and I didn't know what was going on. And it turns out that if it was recording for a while and it started to build up like a backlog in a buffer because it wasn't able to write to the SD card fast enough. So I guess the SD card I'm using, it's like a 256 gigabyte SanDisk Ultra, I think. But I guess this Ultra is not fast enough. You have to get one of the faster memory cards, I guess, to handle the, you know, the 5.7K video that this thing is producing. That's a lot of data to write to the memory card. So you have to have as fast a card as possible, I think. I thought this card would be fast enough, but apparently it's not up to the job. And I did realize after like playing back the video that the speaker does work. So if you're reviewing your own video, there's a tiny speaker built into the camera body, and you can hear the audio. It's not good enough to make a judgment call about whether it's good audio or not, but you can at least confirm that audio is being recorded, and you get a sense of what's being said, you know, what's being recorded. And I remember the first time I was using this camera with the Rode Wireless Go microphone, which I have plugged in now. I had it on the medium setting in terms of the decibel output. It has low, medium, high, and I found that when I was editing the video, the volume level was much lower than my GoPro, and I had to boost it to like 200% in the editing program to bring it up to the level of the GoPro. So now I've set it to high. So the Rode Wireless Go microphone output is at the highest decibel rating. So I'm curious whether that made any difference. So I haven't seen any of the video really from the Lucky Tea Garden yet. I'll edit that later on. As I said, from this point I'm going to be mounting the camera on the scooter in another kind of a fun angle. I'm trying to think exactly what angle to use. Maybe mount it towards the rear of the scooter, or maybe to the front but on an angle rather than straight ahead, or maybe I'll try a variety of positions just to play around as my mystery visitor and I ride to our coffee shops. So that should be. a quick check-in on the cafe morning with my mystery visitor. I was going to say mystery benefactor, my mystery visitor. And we stopped at a place called This Is a Book, a coffee shop kind of on the outskirts of Mae Sot, down towards, kind of towards the river and the border with Myanmar. And they have a nice pond here with fish. And of course I plan to get some of this fish food here and feed the fish. They're probably waiting impatiently down below, somewhere down there. So I've been hanging out at This Is a Book for a few minutes, playing around with the 360 camera. One thing I did was get some fish food, and then I held the camera down close to the water and dropped the fish food so it was falling past the camera and then hitting the fish, and then hitting the water, and the fish can eat it. But again, I really have no idea what I'm doing with the 360 camera, because I don't know why that particular perspective would be any different using a 360 camera as opposed to a GoPro or something. I keep using the 360 just as if it's a GoPro. It's hard for me to get my head wrapped around this 360 idea. And right now I have it shooting in 360 video as well, but I'm just treating it as a normal vlogging camera. Anyway, this is my drink. I haven't even tasted it yet. It's a smoothie. And I asked if they could make some kind of a fruit smoothie, and they said they could do like an apple lemon. I was expecting, traditional flavors, like banana, mango, things like that. But I guess they don't have any fruit out here at the moment other than apple and lemon. So let's give this a try. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it's tastes very much like apple, kind of like a crushed apple juice, with lots of ice in it, apple smoothie. Not so sweet, which yeah, for some people, that's to their taste. Whether you like it sweeter or not, I guess you can say. Refreshing. Yeah, that's nice. Refreshing. Something about this Insta360 One X2 that I dislike, and I think they could improve the design, is that the power button and the record button are very difficult to locate. For one thing, I can't see them. Everything is black. The camera unit itself is all black, which gives it a very sleek, space-agey, kind of look. But at the same time, I can't see the record button, because the record button is also flat black. It just fades into the camera itself, and I have no idea where it is. And you can't feel it either. It's so smooth. Especially, I mean, sitting here very relaxed, I can feel the edges. It's like, oh, there's the record button. But when you're riding the scooter or walking or something and you're trying to find the record button quickly, you can't find it by feel. So it needs to be textured in some way so that you can feel it. And same thing ×2 for the power button on the side, because you're not generally even looking at the side. So you have to find the power button by feel. And I can't find it. I'm constantly pressing, trying to find the power button. So it needs to be textured a little bit so that you can actually feel where it is. Yeah, that's something, the design, I think they could improve. Next coffee shop on today's cafe visit. This is Give and Take Coffee. I ordered a matcha espresso. I had a matcha tea last time I was here, and this one is a matcha espresso. The coffee flavor mixed with matcha. See what that's like. And I ordered a kind of Nutella cheesecake. So getting very fancy now. The last you saw me in this particular vlog, I was with my mystery visitor at Give and Take Coffee Shop, and I shot a little bit of the 360 video when I was there. But since Give and Take is so close to Friendship Bridge number 2, I suggested that we, take the scooter up there, and then if you drive past Friendship Bridge number 2, you end up in quite a nice rural area, and there are 2 temples here that I know about. So we rode up here, and we're at the first temple now, and have quite a nice view of the Thai countryside, and then looking across the river into Myanmar. So I'm gonna spin the GoPro around as I always do, and show you the scenery here. Well, behind me first actually is the temple that we're at. There are some nice Buddha statues at the top of this hill. And the last time I was here, this whole area was still being planted. There were no crops growing. But if you look below right now, you can see the fields are all full of corn. And yeah, there's the view right now out into the countryside. As I talked about in a previous video, when I came up to this temple, the first time I tried to find it, I rode my scooter over here along a road here through the farms, and then the road dead-ended and I had to start hiking on a trail. And I tried to follow the trail and it looked like it was going to the temple, but it led me to this field, and then I tried to climb through the corn or whatever crop was growing at the time, and then I just couldn't get any farther and I gave up and I turned around. But so I stopped right down here in the middle of this field basically. But had I gone just a few feet further, I would have found the trail, and then the trail goes off in this direction, and then the temple is right around the corner. But I've been quite lucky today because the rain has stayed away. It's been raining a lot lately, and I just thought it was going to pour rain all day long, but hasn't at all. So it's turned into a pretty nice day. And I'm shooting with my GoPro because I was using the 360 camera so much this morning, I already ran out of battery power. I've got 2 batteries, and I started the day with full charges on both batteries, but they both died. I think I have like a couple of minutes left on 1 battery, and I'm saving that for a special occasion. So I'm using the GoPro again here. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot here. And then from here, we're going to walk down to the temple. So, yeah, it gets a bit confusing, the geography here, but you can see there's a small town there, a bunch of buildings. That's actually, you feel like that would be in Thailand, but in fact the river snakes like in a crazy pattern down here, and those buildings are actually in a small town in Myanmar. So we're actually looking across the border into Myanmar down there. We came down from the viewpoint up there, and we're back at the base of this temple. And I was just talking about how the first time I came here, this large statue was missing an arm on the right. It had fallen off, and you can see they've been working on it for a while, and they've replaced the arm, and the old arm is down here on the ground. And this temple is known for kind of a revered black Buddha image, which is around the corner here. So we're going to go take a look at the black Buddha first, and then climb up here to the very top. Very nice views from up there. And you've got the usual variety of images here. Guanyin here, and then smiling, laughing, sort of happy Buddha there. But first we're going to head this way, take a look at the black Buddha. I imagine the first time I visited this temple, I looked up, you know, the significance of a black Buddha image like this, but I can't remember what I read, so I can't tell you right now what it means. But I'm sure there's something significant about black Buddhas in general. And he also has an unusual hand posture, touching the ground, but with his hand in a different position from the normal, you know, summoning Mara position that you see most of the time. Just like this white one over here on the side is also sitting with one hand touching the ground, you know, the fingers extended to touch the ground. And that's what I'm used to seeing. I think that's the most common position you're going to see. But you can see the fingers are, you know, the backs of the fingers are facing to the front. But the black Buddha has his right hand facing the other, palm forward, basically. And that probably has a significance as well. But I'll have to look that up later on to learn any of that. Climbing up the steep stairs to the top of this temple. And because I don't have any battery power left for the 360 camera, I've got my trusty GoPro fired up. Clouds are moving in, so my mystery visitor and I might end up getting rained on before this trip is over and we go back to Mae Sot. We'll see. But yeah, I rode the scooter up to the top of the hill, nearby hill. First, because you get a nice view of the location, the setting for this temple. And now we're just climbing up to the top of the temple itself. It's not a long or difficult climb, but it is quite steep. Here's the top of the main temple. On one side, and then up there I think is the highest point. The battery died in the GoPro, so I just replaced it, and I have 11% power left in this one, so I did document reaching the highest point. As always, looking towards the mountains of Myanmar. Windy enough up here, you feel like you're at the top of a serious mountain. And from up here, you can look down on the black Buddha tucked away in that little valley over there. Next, and perhaps a final stop on the day's tour, the weather has stayed really nice. The sun is still out and the sky is still really nice and blue. Maybe you can see it up above me there, blue sky. So myself and my mystery visitor have gone to one more temple before heading back into Mae Sot. And so we're going to be climbing up a hill. And there are three interesting sites at this temple. The main temple complex, then there's an interesting shrine beside it, down a little trail, and then one of those balancing boulders, like a large boulder painted gold that looks like it's balancing like magic on a knife's edge sort of thing. And I believe this temple is quite is revered by people from Myanmar, people from Myanmar, and a bit of a grab bag of technology here as well, because my 360 camera, the batteries are all dead. The Hero 9, the battery's all dead, and now I've switched over to the Hero 7, and I don't have a way to plug in an external microphone into the 7 today. I didn't bring that with me, didn't think I would need it, so I'm using the internal mics on the Hero 7. But here we are down at the base of the temple, and there are a bunch of soldiers stationed here, like border control police. You can see they have camouflage around the pagodas, and they have tents, so all the soldiers are sleeping inside there. And my mystery visitor and I are going to be climbing up a trail up the hill here in a few minutes. I thought I better fire up the GoPro Hero 7 here just to capture the heavy breathing, to confess how out of shape I am. I was just telling my mystery visitor that hiking up one of these trails is one thing. I can do it, you know, I'm breathing heavy, but I'm okay. But as soon as you try to climb up one of these steep trails and you're talking the whole time, you know, we're exchanging life stories as we're climbing up here. And yeah, talking and hiking, that's hard. I mean, it's much harder than just hiking. Same thing if you're talking into a camera, you know, yeah, your heart starts beating and you start breathing really heavy, much more so than if you're just walking without talking. The combination is what I'm saying, walking and talking. It's exhausting, but getting my breath back. We're about 2/3 of the way to the top, I guess, and heavy breathing going on. Oh, put the camera on this side. The sun is over there, almost at the top, and not a moment too soon. Really tired today, and I don't know why. I'm feeling surprisingly weak. But here's the top of the temple, and the viewpoint is right over here, so we just have to climb up there, and this is the highest point that I'm going to be going. Heavy breathing on Planet Doug today. Yikes. And I've been up here a few other times. I even shot some video up here, but there's the viewpoint. Actually, you can see a bit less this time because with the rainy season, all the trees have grown in. So there's the view from up here. And looking across into Myanmar. The river is down there, and on the other side of the river is the mountains of Myanmar. And here is site number 2 at this particular complex. There's a shrine up here at the top of a fairly sharp set of limestone rocks. It's really quite interesting. And they built quite a precarious set of like stone steps that go up to the top there. And this is at the top. And we're climbing up higher and higher. Getting nicer views of the countryside. Yeah, still breathing hard. I was just telling my mystery visitor, it seems like today I was very unprepared when it came to cameras. All my batteries are dead, switching from one camera to the next, and as we were riding up here, I noticed the scooter was getting pretty low on gas too, so it's going to be a touch and go. whether we make it back into town. So we have to keep our eyes open for a gas station or anybody selling gas at the side of the road. Or we may not make it. Wow. Nice view. This is the same perspective that we had from the other temple. And pointed out a town that was in Myanmar, even though it feels like it's in Thailand. But the river curves, snakes all the way into Thailand like that. And that town there is sitting in the middle of that curve. So technically that's actually part of Myanmar, that town down there. But yeah, it's a beautiful spot up here. Last stop on the Planet Doug tour of this temple, the balancing boulder at the top of the hill. And this one is meant to sort of be reminiscent of the very famous and much larger one across the river in Myanmar. But even though it's smaller, I still find it kind of impressive because it's not like they put the boulder here. It just ended up here naturally. And you have to think about, you know, in terms of geological terms, how in the world did this boulder just end up sitting here? At what point, how many tens of thousands of years ago, and where did it come from, and why did it never tip over and fall over? But now, of course, it's incorporated into this Buddhist temple, and people come here to make offerings. But yeah, the balancing boulder. Down at the bottom, last moments of today's small adventures. And this is the name of this temple in Thai, right here. Ooh. And they have a photograph of the boulder that's balanced right there. So that's probably the most famous site here at that temple. And from here, it could be that the day is over and the video is over. Going to get on the scooter, see if there's enough gas to get us back into town. But here we are, back at ground level. Glad to be here. And yeah, get on the scooter, head back into town. And a bit of a mishmash, different cameras, different camera techniques, different places, stretching all the way from early morning at my guest house, testing the camera, through breakfast at the Lucky Tea Garden, and on to these two temples. So yeah, quite a full day. I'm gonna call it here and see you in the next video. So thanks for watching from me and my mystery visitor.